A man doesn't slam doors when he's furious. He locks them quietly and goes back to whatever he was doing before you gave him a reason to. On the morning my own daughter told me I'd ruined her life just by being her father, I didn't raise my voice either. I set down my newspaper, folded it once along the crease, and gave her exactly the quiet she said she wanted. Mother's Day, Council Bluffs, Iowa. 61 degrees, gray sky threatening rain that never came. My wife Ruth had the dining room table set with her mother's china, the good stuff we take out maybe twice a year. Because our daughter Megan was driving in from Omaha with her fiancé, and Ruth wanted the house to look like something out of a magazine instead of what it actually is, a paid-off four-bedroom that a man built one, plumbing contract at a time. 34 years I ran Danvers Plumbing and Mechanical out of a single van with a rotary phone bolted to the dash. My own father drank himself into an early grave and left my mother with 3 kids and a stack of unpaid bills, so I promised myself early that no child of mine would ever lie awake wondering if there'd be groceries. Megan grew up with braces, dance lessons, a car at 16, a paid-for degree from Drake University. You'd think that buys you something. Turns out what it buys you is a Mother's Day where your own daughter looks at you like you're the reason her life went sideways. I spent the morning the way I spend every Sunday before company arrives, coffee on the back porch, watching the sprinkler hit the same 4 hydrangea bushes in the same order it always does. Ruth came out around 8 in her robe, kissed the top of my head, and said, "Be easy on him today, Walt." It's her day, not a day for grilling anybody. When have I ever grilled anybody? She gave me the look. 36 years of marriage, and that woman has one look that does the work of 1,000 arguments. It was about the credit card statement from last week. That wasn't a lecture. That was arithmetic. It's Mother's Day. Let the arithmetic rest. I told her I would. Should have known better than to make a promise about Megan before Megan had any say in it. They showed up 40 minutes late. Of course they did. Megan came through the door with her fiancé Trent's hand practically fused to the small of her back, like he was worried she might make a run for it. Handsome enough kid, in the way that makes you count your silverware after he leaves. They'd been together 11 months. In 11 months, I'd learned exactly one thing about Trent. He never once asked me a single question about myself. Not how's the business holding up, not how'd you build all this from nothing. Just looked, calculated, like he was pricing the furniture. Megan hugged her mother, clapped me on the shoulder like we were fraternity brothers. "Nice spread, Walt." "Your mother did it," I said. "I just paid for the ham." Trent laughed half a second too late, the way you laugh at a joke in a language you don't quite speak. Dinner started fine enough. Small talk. Ruth, bragging on her garden club. I half listened, while I watched Megan check her phone under the table 3 separate times. Trent kept steering the conversation. Asked Ruth about her roses. Asked about our trip to Branson last fall. Easy stuff. Warm stuff. I'll give him that he's good with warmth. Just never once pointed in my direction. At one point he caught me watching him and smiled. "You've got a beautiful place here, Walt." Megan talks about growing up here like it was something out of a storybook. "It wasn't a storybook," I said. "It was a lot of overtime, Dad." Megan, half laughing, half warning. Let him compliment the house. I agree with him. It's beautiful. Took me 19 years to pay it off outright. Something was coming. I could feel it the way you feel weather change in an old knee. Dessert hit the table, and Megan cleared her throat the way she used to when she was 10 and about to tell me she'd wrecked her bike doing something she wasn't supposed to. "So, Dad, I wanted to talk to you about something. Trent and we've got an opportunity." There it is. What kind of opportunity? A trading thing. His buddy runs a group. They do currency trading. Forex. Some kind of algorithm. Crazy returns, Dad. Like insane. We just need capital to get into the next tier. How much capital? Megan looked at Trent. Trent looked at his water glass. 190,000. Megan said, "We'd need you to cover most of it, like 85%. I didn't say anything for a second, just sat there and let the number breathe. $190,000, I repeated. For a currency trading group you heard about from his buddy. Not his buddy, Dad. A real operation. They've got a track record. Does the group have a name? Meridian Capital Partners," Trent said, smooth as anything. "We've already turned 22% this quarter. My cousin's been in since January. He's already seen returns. Your cousin. Does your cousin have a last name?" "Walt." Ruth said softly, a hand already sliding toward my knee. I'm asking a question. It's a fair question. 22% in a quarter, no SEC registration I'd recognize, no CFTC license number, nothing but a name that sounds like it was built in an afternoon by somebody who watched one too many finance YouTube channels. I'd already spent a week quietly making calls after Megan first mentioned this thing to her mother 2 Sundays back. Ruth doesn't know I looked into it. Nobody asked me to look into it. That's exactly what 34 years of getting burned teaches a man to do before he ever says yes to anything. Megan, I did some digging on this. Her face just changed. You did what? She shot a look at her mother. Fast, sharp, the kind that says, why would you tell him this fast before I even had a chance to work it out myself? Ruth didn't flinch. Her eyes just met mine, permanently, like she'd expected that look and already made her peace with it. Yes, I did, I said. Your mother told me 2 Sundays back when you first mentioned it to her. You didn't think she'd sit on $190,000 ask all by herself, did you? Mom, don't bring Mom into this. I said she's your mother, not your business partner. She was worried, so she told me. That's what happens in this family when somebody's about to make a mistake. The people who love you talk to each other. I made a few calls. This group isn't registered with the National Futures Association. No investment advisor registration under that name. No filings I can find anywhere. Dad, it's got every sign of... Here we go again. Let me finish. No, I know how this ends. Dad, I've heard the speech my whole life. You make your calls. You find your reasons. And now you're going to tell me why I can't do the one thing I actually believe in. I'm telling you it's not real, Megan. That's not an opinion. That's a fact I verified. It's always something with you. Her voice cracked into that register, and Ruth's hand found my knee under the table. A warning press. Every time I try to build something, you've got a spreadsheet ready to tear it down. The nursing program, not the right fit for me, apparently. The engagement to Kyle, too fast. Every single time you've got the right answer, and I'm supposed to just sit there and nod like I don't have a brain in my head. I'm trying to protect you from your own certainty. He was standing now. Trent's hand on her arm, not pulling her back, pushing her forward. If I'm honest, I wouldn't understand that until later. You don't believe in me. You've never believed in me. You think I'm still 10 years old wrecking my bike on Maple Street, and I am so tired of it. That's not fair, I said, and for the first time all afternoon I felt my own voice go tight. I have believed in you since the day you were born. Believing in you and handing you $190,000 with zero documentation to back it up are two very different things. See, that's the problem. Everything's a document to you. Everything's a spreadsheet. You can't just trust me. Trust isn't the problem, Megan. Meridian Capital Partners is the problem. Ruth's voice went soft, pleading. Honey, sit down. Let's finish dessert and talk about this calmly later. No, Mom, I'm done. She turned back to me, and her eyes were wet. And for 1 second, just one, I thought she was going to say something that would let us both walk it back. You know what? I wish you weren't even my father. I wish I had a dad who actually let me live. 24 years, every dance recital, every scraped knee, every 2 a.m. run to urgent care when she fell off the trampoline and broke her wrist. Every dollar, every ounce of it. And this is the receipt she hands me. The backyard went dead silent. Even the birds seemed to hold off. Ruth's hand clamped down on my knee like she could hold the whole thing together through grip strength alone. Trent didn't say a word, just watched. And I remember thinking even then, why isn't he embarrassed? Why does he look like he's waiting for something? I stood up slowly, folded my napkin, set it down next to a piece of pie nobody was going to finish now. Then live like you never had one, I said. Not loud. Didn't need to be loud. Some sentences land harder in a whisper than a shout. And I watched that one land on my daughter's face like a slap she didn't see coming. Dad? For a second the anger fell right off her, and she sounded 12 years old again. Dad, wait. I didn't mean I didn't wait. I walked past her, past Trent's wide eyes, past Ruth calling my name in a voice I hadn't heard since her own father's funeral, out through the side gate to the driveway, where the Lexus sat glinting in the May sun, the car Megan had driven for most of the last year. The car still titled under Danvers Plumbing and Mechanical because I'd never gotten around to signing it over, because I kept waiting for her to earn it instead of just taking it. Funny how a man can wait 24 years for his daughter to ask him one real question and get his answer on Mother's Day. I climbed in, turned the key, didn't look back at the house. My phone buzzed before I was 2 blocks away. Dad, bring my car back or I'm calling the police. My car. I read it twice, sitting at a red light on Canesville Boulevard with my hand steady on the wheel and something cold settling into my chest. It wasn't rage anymore, not exactly. It was something quieter than that. Something that had been building longer than one bad dinner. A second text came right behind it. I'm serious, Dad. I'm not playing. I typed back 3 words and set the phone face down on the passenger seat. It was never yours. The light turned green. I drove past the exit that would have taken me home, past the shop lit gold in the late afternoon sun, out onto I-29 with no real destination in mind, just distance, just quiet, just the sound of a German engine doing the one thing my own daughter couldn't manage all afternoon, running smooth without a fight. And somewhere behind me, in a backyard full of good china and half-eaten pie, my daughter was about to learn exactly how far a man will go once he's finally done being told he's the problem. The first thing you learn building a business out of nothing is that silence is the loudest sound in the world when you're the one causing it. I've let plumbers go with a phone call shorter than the one my daughter didn't get from me that night. I drove for 2 hours with no destination and ended up, of all places, at the shop on 9th Avenue. Lights off except the security floods humming over rows of service vans nobody needed on a Sunday. I parked the Lexus in its usual spot under the bay awning and sat in the driver's seat until the automatic lights shut off around me. Just a man in the dark, listening to an engine tick as it cooled. 24 years, and it comes down to 3 words on a phone screen. My car. Like I hadn't bought the thing outright. Like I hadn't put her name nowhere near it out of pure, stubborn hope she'd ask for it properly one day. Ruth called 11 times before midnight. I let 7 of them go to voicemail because a man needs at least one night to be angry without an audience, even his own wife. Walter Danvers, you get home right now, she said when I finally picked up. No hello, straight into it. She's a wreck, sitting on the porch steps like somebody died. Nobody died, Ruth. Somebody got told the truth. You didn't have to say it like that. I said it exactly how I meant it. My voice was calm. Too calm, probably, for a man whose daughter had just wished him out of existence in front of a stranger who didn't love her the way he pretended to. He wants to live like he never had a father. Ruth. Walt. I'm just giving her the room to try. Silence on the line. Then quieter. She didn't mean it. She meant it enough to say it in front of Trent. In front of you. On Mother's Day, no less. Real thoughtful timing on her part. Are you coming home tomorrow? She said. And I hung up before she could talk me out of the one night's distance I'd earned in 36 years without ever taking one. I didn't sleep in the car. I'm 61, not a fool. Checked into the Hampton Inn off I-80, ordered a club sandwich from room service I never touched, and lay there staring at a ceiling fan that wasn't spinning, running the whole dinner back like a bad rerun. Meridian Capital Partners, Trent's cousin. 190,000 for a trading algorithm nobody could produce paperwork for. He isn't stupid. My daughter isn't a stupid woman, which means somebody worked very hard to make her stop thinking like one. By 7 the next morning, my phone had 16 new messages. Megan, mostly. I read them over coffee I didn't taste. Dad, you can't just take my car. That's insane. You know that, right? Mom said you're at a hotel. Real mature. I called the police. They're coming to the house. You want to explain it to them, or should I? Bring it on, kid. Send every squad car in Pottawatomie County if it makes you feel like something. I drove home around 9, straight into a driveway with an actual patrol car parked in it. Lights off, thank God, but still a police vehicle sitting in front of my house on a Monday morning like I was running a chop shop instead of 3 legitimate service bays with my name on the sign. Megan was on the porch talking to a young officer, arms crossed, looking like she hadn't slept either. Trent was nowhere in sight. First smart move he'd made all weekend. There he is, Megan said as I climbed out of the Lexus, something ugly flickering across her face, relief and anger fighting for the same real estate. That's my car, officer. That's the car I've driven for a year. The officer, Delgado, according to the nameplate, couldn't have been older than 28, looked at me, then back at Megan with the particular patience of a man who'd already worked out how this was going to go. Sir, is this vehicle registered to you? It's registered to Danvers Plumbing and Mechanical, I said, pulling the registration from the glove box before he even had to ask, because I'd grabbed it the night before knowing exactly where this was headed. I'm Walter Danvers. It's a company vehicle. My daughter drove it as a courtesy while she was between cars. I haven't needed a courtesy car in 8 months, Dad. Which is when the courtesy should have ended, I said, but I let it slide. My mistake, apparently. Delgado studied the registration, glanced at Megan, glanced at me, and you could watch the whole situation evaporate on his face in real time. Ma'am, if the vehicle's registered to the business and your father owns the business, there's no theft here. This is a civil matter. A family matter. There's nothing I can do with this. He just took it, Megan said, and her voice cracked in a way that broke something in my chest the last time it cracked over a broken collarbone at 14. Now it just broke my jaw tighter. Ma'am, Delgado closed his notebook gently but firmly. I understand you're upset, but I can't file a report on a vehicle you don't own. He nodded at me, professional, a little apologetic. The universal cop look for sorry you had to see your kid do this. Walked back to his cruiser. Neither of us said a word until it pulled out of the cul-de-sac. Then Megan looked at me with an expression I hadn't seen since she was 17, and I caught her lying about where she actually wrecked her first car. You humiliated me, she said. You called the cops on your own daughter over a company car. Megan, I didn't. You did that because you accused me of stealing it. I drove away in my own vehicle from a table where my own daughter told me she wished I'd never existed. Forgive me if I didn't stick around to hand you the keys on my way out. He didn't have an answer for that. Just stood there on the porch, fists opening and closing at her sides. And for 1 second, one single second, I thought maybe this was the bottom. Maybe this was where it turned around. Then her phone buzzed. She looked down at it, and whatever color was left in her face drained out completely. What? I said nothing, Dad. She turned the phone face down, more instinct than choice, the way you flip over a wound before you've even processed your own bleeding. A text from Trent. Call me. Cousin says the transfer's delayed. Something's off with the account. There it is. I'd been waiting 3 days for that particular shoe to drop. Ever since I made the calls Megan didn't know about. One to a title company in Sarasota where the supposed fund was registered. One to an old friend who handles fraud cases for the Iowa Attorney General's office. I hadn't told Megan what I'd found. Didn't need to. Some lessons cost more than you think when you have to pay for them yourself. What's wrong? I asked, keeping my voice flat, keeping it neutral, because the second I sounded like I told you so, she'd shut down completely. And I'd learned that a long, long time ago from my own daughter. It's nothing, probably just paperwork. Megan, I already sent them the money. Okay, it burst out of her like something that had been under pressure for days. Not all of it, but my part. 28,000. I sent it Thursday, before any of this. There it is. The whole thing laid out plain as daylight. $28,000 I happened to know she didn't have sitting free in a checking account, which meant she'd drained her savings, maxed a credit line, or done something dumber. I didn't ask which. Not yet. A man has to let the floor finish collapsing before he starts asking what's underneath it. And his cousin's group, this Meridian thing, says the account has a problem. It's probably nothing. Megan, I need you to hear me. And I need you to actually hear it this time, not just wait for me to stop talking. I stepped closer, and my voice dropped the way it does in a job site walkthrough when the number on the estimate isn't the number it should be. I checked days ago. Meridian Capital Partners doesn't exist as a licensed entity in Florida or anywhere else. The trading account Trent's cousin supposedly manages isn't registered with FINRA. There's no advisor license under that name. Nothing. It's a shell. It's always been a shell. She went white. Actually white. Like the blood left her face during a countdown. How long have you known? Since before Mother's Day. And you didn't tell me. You just let me sit there. You humiliated me at dinner instead of just telling me. I tried to tell you at dinner, Megan. That's the entire reason we're standing in this driveway right now. Because I tried. And you told me you wished I'd never been your father for the crime of trying to stop you from doing exactly what you just did anyway. Silence. Real silence. The kind that carries weight. The kind you could set your hand on. Her phone buzzed again. She didn't look at it this time, just stood there, staring at the concrete like it might open up and take her somewhere better than where she was currently standing. "Where's Trent?" I asked, quieter now. "I don't know. He stopped answering an hour ago." Of course he did. I didn't say it out loud. Didn't need to. I watched my daughter do the math herself, standing in that driveway in yesterday's clothes, and I want to tell you it felt like a victory. It didn't. It felt like watching a man drown 3 feet from shore, and knowing if I jumped in too soon, he'd never learn to swim at all. "I'm going inside," I said. "Your mother's sick with worry, and I haven't slept in a proper bed, Dad." Her voice cracked again, smaller this time. "What do I do?" I stopped at the door, didn't turn around right away. Part of me, the part that built 3 service bays out of one dying panel van, wanted to walk back and fix it the way I'd fixed everything since the day she was born. "You wanted to live like you never had a father," I said instead. "Find out what that's like." I went inside and let the screen door click shut behind me, and I didn't look back to see her face because I already knew what it looked like. And some things a man can't afford to look at twice in one lifetime. If you've been with me a while, you know how I feel about this next part. Set your worries down in the comments, let me know where you're listening from, and hit that subscribe button while you're at it. Revenge doesn't always look like fire and shouting. Sometimes it looks like a man doing absolutely nothing while the truth finishes the job for him. And let me tell you, watching my own daughter come apart taught me something no amount of money ever could. Nothing has ever felt more necessary, and nothing has ever cost me more to sit through. 3 days after the patrol car sat in my driveway, Megan started calling. I let it ring. 4 calls the first day, 6 the second, and by the third day the calls stopped and the texts took over instead. Long, rambling, the kind of messages a person sends at 2 in the morning when their pride's finally run out of gas. "Dad, I really need to talk to you. The account was fake. Trent's gone. I think I've lost everything. Please just call me back." I didn't. Ruth thought I was being cruel. Maybe I was. But I'd caught that girl before she hit the ground for 24 years straight, and some cold, practical part of me, the same part that built 3 bays out of one dying van, had decided she needed to feel the ground this time before I let her stand back up. She showed up at the shop on the 5th day, not the office, the whole lot. Stood out front by the service bay in the same wrinkled shirt she'd probably had on since Thursday. My service manager, Dale, stuck his head into my office. "Your daughter's out there, Walt. Been standing by the entrance 20 minutes. Wouldn't come in without asking. Wouldn't come in without asking. There's a first." I let her wait another 10 minutes before I walked out. Petty, maybe. I earned a little petty. "I lost some money, Dad." She looked wrecked. Not dramatically ruined, genuinely wrecked. The kind of tired that sits behind the eyes. "I need to talk to you." "You're talking. Is there somewhere private? This is where I work. Same as anybody else who walks onto this lot with a problem." It landed the way I meant it to. She flinched, but didn't leave. "The money's gone. All of it. 28,000, my whole savings. And I had to put the rest on a credit card because Trent said the closing needed a rush fee." "How much more?" 9,000, she said, so quiet I almost missed it. "On top of the 28. 37,000, Dad, and there's nothing. No fund, no cousin, no Meridian. Her number's disconnected. Trent's completely gone." I let the silence sit there. Didn't rush to fill it. A younger version of me would have already reached for his wallet. But I'd learned something in the 5 days since that dinner. The silence does more work than I ever could. "I don't know what to do," she said, and her voice cracked wide open. "I can't make rent this month. I put too much on that card. I'm wiped out and Dad, I'm asking for help. I'm asking you. You told me you wished I'd never been your father. I know. You called the police on me in my own driveway over a company car. I know, Dad, I know. And I was wrong. I was so wrong. But I'm asking you to help me now. Please." "No," I said. She stared at me like I'd spoken another language. "What?" "No, I'm not bailing you out." I kept my voice level. Cost me something to hold it there. But I held it. "You wanted to live like you never had a father. Fathers don't hand their daughters $37,000 to clean up a mess a con man and his cousin made together. You want to live without me? Live without me. Do the math. Figure out the card. Figure out all of it. Dad, please." Her voice broke completely now, and she didn't hide it. I could see how much. I'm going to lose the apartment. I have nowhere to go. Your mother's got the guest room made up, I said. That's the extent of what you get from this family right now. A bed and a hot meal, not a check. It's just for a little while, so get yourself right, fast. She went home to Ruth that night. I stayed late at the shop doing paperwork I didn't need to do. Wasn't ready to watch my daughter sleep in her childhood bedroom like a woman twice her age with nowhere else to go. But she had no choice. She moved back into the house, got a notice from her old landlord about the broken lease, sold her watch, a graduation gift from my father, to cover half the card minimum. I gave her a job answering phones at the shop because nothing else was hiring fast enough, and I'd walk past her some mornings still in her work polo, looking like a woman who used to believe the world owed her something and had very recently learned otherwise. She never asked me for money again. Not once. That's the part that started mattering more to me than anything she could have said. Ruth pushed, of course. He's suffering enough, Walt. How long is this going to keep going? Until I believe it, I told her. Not until I forgive her. Until I believe her. 3 weeks later, I found her Sunday night in the garage, going through a shoebox full of old paperwork, her half-finished business notes for the trading scheme, printouts of texts with Trent, a legal pad full of numbers that never added up, even when she wanted them to. She didn't hear me come in. You're keeping that for a reason, I said. She jumped, then set the box down like it was something shameful. I don't know. Reminder, maybe, of how a smart person looks stupid on paper. 37,000 gone, she said flatly, like she'd practiced it enough times to keep her voice from cracking. It cracked anyway. Turns out the trading account wasn't even a real account. Just Trent's cousin's personal checking. There is no Meridian Capital Partners. There's no fund. There's nothing. Dad. It's just gone. I know, I said. I've known for a week. You could have stopped me. I tried to stop you at my own dinner table, Megan. And you told me you wished I'd never been born into your life for the trouble of it. I finally set the paperwork down. I'm not going to apologize for being right about something I begged you to reconsider. She flinched like I'd struck her, but she didn't argue. That, more than anything, told me how far the floor had actually dropped out from under her. Where's Trent? I asked. Gone. Ghosted me. Blocked me on everything. His apartment's cleared out. I went by yesterday. Landlord said he broke the lease 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, Dad. Before we even asked you for the money. He already knew. He knew the whole time. And he still let me sit at your table and beg you for 85% of a scam. There it is. The whole shape of it, laid bare in my own daughter's voice. I'd suspected it the moment I watched Trent's hand on her arm at dinner, propping her up like a table leg instead of comforting a woman he claimed to love. But suspicion and confirmation are two very different meals. And I could see my daughter had finally choked down the second one. I made some calls Thursday, I said. After you told me about the delayed transfer, I've got a friend, Roger Pruitt, who handles fraud cases for the Iowa Attorney General's office. Went to high school with him, before you were even born. I asked him to look into Trent Kowalski and this whole Meridian operation. Megan's head came up. And it's not his first rodeo. Roger found 2 other names, 2 other cities. Wichita, 18 months back, and before that somewhere outside Tulsa. Same play every time. Fake trading group, fake urgency, always targeting young couples with access to family money they didn't earn themselves. I let that sentence sit there a second, watched it land. Your girl wasn't unhappy, Megan. She was the front door. She earns a finder's fee for every mark she walks in. The color that had drained from Megan's face on the porch 3 days earlier had nowhere left to go, so it just froze there. Trent's cousin never existed. It was him and some woman running it together the whole time. Roger's still confirming the finances, but the pattern doesn't lie. Boyfriend meets a woman with money behind her, plants the opportunity, applies pressure, makes sure she's the one who goes to daddy for the funding. Money moves. He disappears with his cut before anybody thinks to ask where he went. I shrugged. It wasn't a warm gesture. You weren't the target, kid. You were the vehicle. Megan put her face in her hands. Didn't cry exactly, but close enough that I looked away and gave her what privacy I could in my own garage. I feel like an idiot, she said, muffled. You're 26, and you fell for somebody who was very, very good at his job. I paused. But I'm going to say this once, and then I'm done with it. Every single thing I ever tried to warn you about, going back years, wasn't me trying to keep you small. It was me trying to keep you off exactly this chair, exactly this conversation. She looked up. Why didn't you just tell me all this at dinner? Why did you let me humiliate myself calling the police on you instead of just laying it all out? Fair question. Best one she'd asked me in months. Because you wouldn't have believed a word I said at that table, Megan. You'd already decided I was controlling. Sometimes a man has to let you hit the wall yourself. Because I'd spent 24 years trying to steer you around it, and you kept grabbing the wheel back. I'm so sorry, Dad. I said awful things to you. I'm sitting in my childhood bedroom at 26 because I lost $37,000 to a woman who used me from day one. I didn't answer right away, just watched her sit there in the garage light, surrounded by the wreckage of her own certainty. And for the first time in 3 weeks, I let myself actually feel it. Not the anger, mostly burned out by then, but something closer to grief. This is my daughter. This is what it cost her to stop being so sure of everything. You're not getting your 37,000 back, kid. I want to be straight with you about that. But you're not the last name on that list, and you're not going to add another one to it because it's over now. She put her face in her hands again, and this time she really cried. Not the almost tears from the shop 5 days earlier, but the real thing, shoulders shaking. 3 weeks of answering phones and sleeping under her old cheerleading trophies, finally cracking open all at once. I let her. Didn't rush it, didn't say anything soft too early. Some things a person has to cry all the way through before comfort means anything. When she settled, I sat down next to her on the garage step. I've got something to tell you, I said, and I need you to hear this all the way through before you say anything back. She nodded, wiped her face. Back in January, before any of this started, I began drawing up paperwork to sign the Lexus over to you outright. Birthday gift, 6 months early. It had been sitting in my desk drawer the whole time. I watched it land on her, watched the shame cut a little deeper before I kept going. There's also $150,000 in a trust that's been building since you turned 18. Meant to help you start something real when you were ready, not a scheme. Something legitimate, with a business plan that could survive somebody actually checking the paperwork. You had all of it, she said slowly. This whole time, I was begging you at the dinner table. This whole time, I was living in your house, sleeping under a cheerleading trophy. Why didn't you just give it to me? Any of the last 3 weeks, why did you let me sell Grandpa's watch instead of just? Because a man who hands his daughter everything the second she cries teaches her nothing except that crying works. I said, I needed to know you weren't sorry because you got caught, Megan. I needed to know you were sorry because you understood what you'd done to yourself, to your mother, to me. 3 weeks of answering phones and an empty bank account taught you that a lot better than a check from me would have. She didn't say anything for a long moment. Just sat there and let it settle. I'm not handing you the trust today, I added before she could get her hopes tangled up wrong. It's still there. It's still yours. But it comes with conditions now. A real business plan. One I can actually look at. One that has to survive me picking it apart. The way I should have been allowed to pick apart Meridian Capital Partners before you signed away $28,000 to a woman who never asked me a single, real question at my own dinner table. That's fair, she said, and meant it in a way she hadn't meant much of anything in 3 weeks. That's more than fair. A man doesn't get his inheritance back the day he stops crying. He gets it back the day he's earned the right to be trusted with it again. She nodded, and for the first time in 3 weeks, she almost smiled. Not because it was easy, but because it was honest. And honest was more than she'd had in a long time. Some men win by taking things away. I found out at 61 there's a sharper kind of victory in earning back a daughter you were always going to give everything to anyway. And watching her learn the hard and expensive way that the ground she thought she could stand on without me was never really there at all. If this story moved you, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment below. Let me know where you're listening from.